Hi friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams. It is time today to film the mid-year book Freakout tag. This is a tag that I've done, I think, almost every year since I started BookTube. I love doing this tag as a way to kind of check in with my reading for the year, what have been some of my highlights and lowlights, and to let you know all of that info. I will list the questions and link the original creator down below. It has been kind of all over BookTube, but here we are at the end of June almost, and it's time to look at my reading. Half of the year has gone by. Whoa. All right, here we go. So number one dives right in with a doozy. What is your favorite book of the year? I am going to film a top five favorites. So I will just tell you though that among those five favorites has to be The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. And honestly, this might be my top. I have to look at the list of 5 stars I've given this year so far, but I really liked this book. Brandon Sanderson is a genius with the way he weaves stories together, the depth of his characters, the depth of his world building. This is a huge book, 1,000+ pages, or almost 1,000 pages, I guess. And I just really wasn't bored during this story. I was invested in all the different storylines and I absolutely loved it. So this so far is among my favorites of the year. Possibly my favorite so far. We'll see. Number 2 is the best sequel you've read this year, and I have really not been doing very good with reading series. September will be here pretty soon, and I will be doing series September again with Sarah, hopefully. We haven't talked about it yet, but I'm assuming we will. And I will focus a lot on series in September, but I just really haven't been doing that great reading series. I did read Dead Voices is the sequel to Small Spaces. It's a middle grade kind of horror series, and surprise, surprise, I really enjoyed the first 2. I didn't love the third book very much, but number 2 is Dead Voices, and that is a sequel, and it was creepy. Let me tell you, it was creepy. I enjoyed it though, because it is middle grade, so I knew it wasn't going to go too far, and I had read the first one already. I don't know, I just trusted Catherine Arden with it, and I was in good hands, and it was delightfully creepy. The other kind of companion novel, if you will, I guess it's not exactly a sequel, but The One and Only Ruby by Catherine Applegate is another middle grade. It's the third in a series, and it is kind of a series because they take place sequentially. So the first one is obviously The One and Only Ivan, and then the second one is The One and Only Bob, and then The One and Only Ruby follows a little elephant that we meet in the first book. And it was delightful and sweet and heartfelt. I just really enjoyed that. So I guess those would be my favorite sequels, and I was hard pressed to come up with even an option for that question because I just really have not been doing great reading sequels this year. Number 3 is a new release that you still want to read. And I gotta tell you, Book of the Month has honestly been killing it with choosing books for Book of the Month that are on my anticipated reads list. So on my list of anticipated reads for the year was The Secret Book of Flora Lee by Patty Callahan Henry. Really want to read that one. Hang the Moon by Jeanette Walls, a Prohibition era historical fiction. Really want to read that one. The House is on Fire by Rachel Beanland. She's a local to me author, and this takes place here in Richmond, and I've heard such good things about it from local booksellers. Really, really, really want to read that as well. And all 3 of these were on my anticipated reads list for the year, so definitely looking forward to those. And I think one that I was unaware of until people have started talking about it is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I love games in a book, and I love books about books, and that cover is stunning. So yay for Book of the Month for nailing it with books that I really want to read this year. Oof, there's so many. Number 4 is a most anticipated book that I still want to read that's coming out yet within this year. So it's has not come out yet, but it is coming out. And I just recently posted my anticipated reads for the summer. And from that list of 13 books, I think the 2 that I'm the most excited for is the new middle grade by Kate Albus, which is called Nothing Else But Miracles. It takes place right towards the end of World War II, but in New York City. It follows a sibling group, which I love. So I'm really looking forward to that. And also coming out this summer is The Pomegranate Gate by Ariel Kaplan. I just am very excited for this one as well. Jewish folklore, fantasy. If the description is even remotely true to story, it's going to be a crazy ride. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to both of those, as well as the others on that anticipated list as well. And I haven't really even started looking about October to December, so I'm not sure about the end of the year, but I will be by the end of August. Number 5 is your biggest surprise this year. And I kind of have like a like a bummer surprise and also a surprise, like a good surprise. My bummer surprise is, so every month I do a read like a BookTube friend. When I chose Amanda from the Curly Reader, one of the books that she and I talked about and that I knew I wanted to read because she had put it on my shelves is When the World Was Ours. I don't even remember the author of it now. I'll put a picture here. She loves this book and it sounds like a book that I would love. We follow 3 different friends who during World War II, different things happened to each of them and we kind of follow each of them. This was a bit of a miss for me. And I think it wasn't a horrible book. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars. There were definitely things about it that I liked, but I was positive I was going to love it. And that just wasn't the case. So that was a surprise because I did not love it. And the other surprise, the whole thing about why I even read this book is a surprise because I was sent a copy of Drowning by TJ Newman from Avid Reader Press. And what a surprise to even get the email asking if I would be interested in this because I don't typically read a lot of thrillers. And yet I knew already that I was interested in this because of things I had heard other people talking about. So I was very thrilled to receive a copy of this from the publisher. Surprise. But also, I absolutely loved this and gave it 5 stars. And there are very few, like probably on one hand, I can count the number of thrillers that I gave 5 stars to. This book was so good. I know it's not for everyone because it involves a plane crash and also being in the ocean. And that's both of those scenarios are just very intense. But for me, it was a huge hit. I can't believe I cried in a thriller. What? So this book was a huge surprise for me. I would not be surprised to see this on my favorites of the year list. Number 6 is a new favorite author. And this is tricky because in order for me to think of somebody as a favorite, I feel like I need to read more than just one book by them. And so I haven't read a lot of new to me authors that I feel like are going to be favorites. I think the one that stands out is a rom-com author, Sarah Adams. I read 3 by her this spring and they were relatively clean, like almost completely clean, and not a lot of language, not a lot of steamy bedroom scenes, and just a lot of fun. But are they books that I'm going to remember forever? No. So I feel like because I've read 3 from her, I'm going to say Sarah Adams. I read The Cheat Sheet, I read The Off Limits Rule, and I read Temporary Roomie. But I don't think she's like an all-time favorite author, not an auto buy or anything like that. I just really enjoyed 3 books by her, and she's the only one this year that I've read more than one book by a new author. So there it is, Sarah Adams. Number 7 is your newest fictional crush. And I know a lot of people don't like to answer this. A lot of people do like to answer this. I was kind of joking. I'm like, can I say otter? Because he's so stinking adorable. And I'm not an animal person, but I love this otter. And I loved this story. And it also made me well up with tears. And it was just a delight from start to finish. Loved. So can I say otter is my fictional crush? But if I had to pick like a man, I would probably say Kaladin from The Way of Kings. There's a lot that I like about Kaladin. He's a strong leader. He sacrifices himself. He has a high moral code, a lot of integrity. He is just a man that I can respect and look up to. Is he perfect? No, but not by any means. But I just really loved his character in here. And yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of have a crush on Kaladin. It is what it is. I don't typically get crushes on book characters, but yeah, I really liked Kaladin. And I think he stands out to me, number 1, because this book is chonker and I remember a lot of it. Whereas a rom-com characters are like romance book characters are typically the ones people say for this because they're meant to make you swoon a little bit, but he's not there to make you swoon. Like that's not why his character exists. And with romance books, I often forget them. I just don't remember them in general. But I feel like I'm not going to forget the characters from Way of Kings. So Kaladin, you're my fictional crush. The next question, number 8, is a book that made you cry. And I've already mentioned a couple books that made me tear up, like Drowning and Otter. There are quite a few books that made me tear up this year. But I think the one that made me cry the hardest is The Serpent King by Jeff Setner. I mean, sobs. It's not a book, number one, by the cover. I'm not drawn to it. It's a fine cover, but I'm not drawn to it. It doesn't pull me right in. The story itself, this is kind of a YA. It involves three friends who are in their senior year. It's kind of like a coming of age. It deals with their friendship. Each of them has issues from their home life that they're kind of bringing into their friendship, and flawed characters. But there is an event that happens midway, 3/4 of the way through this book that rocked me to my core, and just how things went from there. I was sobbing. I was sobbing. Yeah, this one made me cry the hardest this year. The next question, number 9, is the worst book that you've read this year. Nobody likes to really focus on the worst books that they read. I have a couple that I've DNF'd, but I'm not really going to talk about them. The ones when I look through that I gave 2 stars to are Garlic and the Witch, which is the sequel to Garlic and the Vampire. I thought Garlic and the Vampire was super cute. I thought it was just a sweet story. Garlic and the Witch, I was not very thrilled with at all. I didn't really care about it anymore. It didn't excite me. It wasn't, the art was super cool, but I just did not nearly like it as much as the first one. And the other book that I gave 2 stars to is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. This is one of my 12 books that's been on my TBR forever that I wanted to read this year, and I read it, and I'm glad I read it because now it's off my TBR, but I was honestly kind of bored, and it was super repetitive at times, and I did not like many of the characters. The main character, Christopher, he was fine. He had autistic boy, teenage boy, and dealing with kind of coming face to face with a situation that he was kind of oblivious to before, and involving his parents. I thought his parents were not that great. I just didn't really feel invested in the story. I was bummed, but I didn't love it. I wouldn't call it a horrible book, and I know many people love it. It just wasn't a hit for me. Maybe it was timing. I don't know, but I didn't love it. Number 10 is the most beautiful book you've acquired, and I have acquired a ton of really pretty books this year, but I think the ones that stand out to me right now are these 2 Miss Marple Agatha Christie's. I just really like them. I like the way that the covers are set up. I love the flowers. I love the brightness to them. Yeah, I'm a fan. Number 11 is a book that you really hope to still finish before the year is over, like that's still on your TBR for the year. So I have these 6, and it's been a while since I've talked about my 12 books I want to read in 2023. I've been doing really good with reading the book as it comes up on my spinner, my TBR spinner. So here are the ones that are left. I have 1000 White Women by Jim Fergus, The Room on Rue Amelie by Kristen Harmel, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer, Room by Emma Donoghue, The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver, and Sold on a Monday by Christina McMorris. So these 6 are books that have been on my TBR for quite a while, and ones that I definitely plan on finishing before the end of the year. If we're talking about books that I've started or that have been on TBRs that I haven't yet read, I do have this little stack here. Let me just kind of share with you what these ones are. So these are books that have been on a TBR or that I'm very interested in reading as well. So I have Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Definitely would love to read that this year. I've picked this up on Independent Bookstore Day, The Secret World of Weather by Tristan Gooley. Things That Matter by Joshua Becker was one of my patron member recommendations. And I think I picked it in December or November. And I started it at that point, and I'm still only halfway through. So I would love to get that finished. My Monticello was a Christmas book exchange book that I picked up, I don't know, February maybe. Jocelyn Nicole Johnson. This has short stories in it, and I read only the first short story. I would love to continue those. Take My Hand was one of my Patreon book club choices one time that didn't get picked. And I set up a whole book club read for it in Fabled because I did really want to read it. And then I never ended up reading it, but I really do want to. There Was Still Love is an Australian book that I picked up in February. Still definitely want to read it. Fable Perret is the author of that one. This was gifted to me by one of my Australian friends. And then I have 2 Owl's Nest Publishing books that I purchased. This one I purchased, The Queen of Ebenezer, and then I was sent Hertz Gets Fused, which just came out in May. So those are my books that kind of live right there that I definitely want to finish before the end of the year. That's way more than you asked for, way more than I was planning on sharing, but that is my mid-year book freakout tag. I love seeing this tag. I love watching other people's versions of it and hearing their answers about how their year is going. I would love to hear from you. What's one book that has been a big surprise for you this year, either good or bad, or any of the other answers that you want to share? I love chatting with you down in the comments, so let's talk down there. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and watching this video. I really appreciate your support, and I look forward to talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.